backdrop. Pretty nice today. It's a nice Thursday. Oh, we got some heavy hitters in the house. Just Bob, good morning. I know you hit the like button on the way in. Did everyone else? And here we go, everyone. We are live. What's up, everyone? My name is Matt Savoca. You are here at the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel. Very glad you made it. We've got a fancy new background. And is that a fancy new haircut for our analyst, the one, the only, Nick Lepri? Follow him at Notorious, FNTSY. And we're here to break down wide receivers for week 8. How are you, my man?
I'm doing exquisite this morning. I'm having a wonderful morning. I do like the new background. All these new backgrounds that we have been given are pretty fire. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter, at Notorious FNTSY, I had a tweet pop off from last night that I thought was very funny. It's basically, the title was how it feels to have Kyle Pitts on your fantasy team. And it's a guy trying to take a nail out of something with a crowbar, and he smacks himself in the head with the crowbar. And that is what it feels like to have Kyle Pitts on your fantasy team.
The algo did, in fact, show me that one. So you seem to impress those overlords over there. How about you guys help us impress the YouTube ones by clicking the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell? Maybe that's how you guys found your way there today. Guys, we also have an awesome community growing up towards 5,000 members of fantasy football players, DFS players, and sports bettors alike. And we are very happy that Stokastic and Notorious are combining for these community efforts over on Discord. Make sure to click the link in the video description below. We got wide receivers to talk about this fine Thursday. It's week 8. It's the beginning of the second half of the season, if you will, the regular season. And ultimately, the big news this week comes from the bevy of injuries that happened in week 7. You know, we're not going to see immediate changes at the very top of these rankings, and let's get to them right away here. But ultimately, in tier 2 especially, we're going to start to see some big changes right away, right?
Yeah, the injuries have just been ramping up at a rapid rate. It was crazy because during the offseason, we didn't really see any injuries. Like, this was a very clean
and you're the reason. You're the reason this is happening now.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of obvious that this was going to happen. Like, you don't just avoid injuries completely. Like, it's always going to get you.
It's football. If you're not, if there are no injuries, it means no football was being played. But when it's Mike Williams, when it's DK Metcalf, when it's Breece Hall, it's particularly rough. And we've had all this content over on the Notorious Fantasy channel and this very channel here, Stokastic Fantasy Football. We got you covered. But the wide receiver position, especially with the buys and the injuries, it's just tough for people out there, Nick. Ultimately, I think we got to get into these mid tiers as fast as possible because these first 6 players that are getting up on the board right now, guys, you're lucky to have them. There aren't really any question marks. And a lot of these matchups, Nick, they look really good. Tyreek Hill, whose expected fantasy points total has been through the roof last 2 weeks, gets Detroit. Jefferson gets Arizona. Jamar Chase gets a Cleveland defense that's below average. Even Devontae Adams, that Vegas offense needs a win, but New Orleans clearly can give up points defensively in a way that we didn't think in previous seasons.
Yeah, the Saints defense and I would say the Colts defense have been the 2 biggest disappointments this season, in my opinion, in terms of just defenses that I thought were going to be pretty solid and just have not really shown up. I think that do you find it interesting that Jameis is not going to start this week, even though he's healthy? I don't think it really affects Chris Olave too much, but personally, I think like for that game to go crazy, right, where Adams could score like 40 points, that's like a back and forth game. I feel like we kind of need Jameis back for that to happen, but maybe I'm wrong.
Hey, I mean, I feel like last week's game, that Thursday night game between New Orleans and Arizona, was a Jameis Winston-esque back and forth game, turnover-prone quarterback, multiple touchdowns thrown. Maybe Dennis Allen and the New Orleans Saints coaching staff are just kind of looking at this as a wash. You know, ultimately, the decision-making is kind of the same. The turnover potential is kind of the same. So you're sticking with what you got. Winston has literally a broken back. Dalton does not. I don't
Yeah.
think it affects Olave, as you said. And honestly, it's the Las Vegas offense doing what you know they can do that affects the shootout potential of this game. Just like Arizona pushed the tempo, pushed the passing, and the scoring last week for New Orleans, that is going to affect this game as well. Cooper Kupp, even in a tough matchup, the one person in this group who does have a tough matchup, still a top 4 wide receiver, no doubt.
Yeah, 100%. It's with Cooper Kupp, you're just auto starting him. Matthew Stafford, the whole team has just struggled mightily, and yet there's just no break for me in the rankings. I'm just going to keep ranking them very highly. I think you can blame a lot of what has happened for the Rams on the offensive line that continues to get more banged up, and maybe coming out of the bye, they look better. But look,
Sure.
if they don't show up in this game, in my opinion, right, they finally have their bye. Now they're coming out this week. If they come out flat-footed, I think it's safe to say that maybe they are not necessarily washed up or something, but maybe this just isn't the team we thought they were going to be. I've given
Well,
them a lot of chances.
right, because some Super Bowl teams just don't repeat. I'm sorry, guys. That's just kind of the
Yeah,
way it goes. In terms of pass blocking grade, they've been one of the worst in the NFL via PFF, third worst pass blocking grade in the NFL. That's
yeah,
not going to get it done when, Matthew Stafford's getting a lot of the blame, but I think the offensive line being an issue is an astute observation there. Let's get to tier 2. We can wax poetic about these players. You're starting them in fantasy football. 7 through 18, which means that we see a flattening of these projections over at stokastic.com. It's the same one that we use to power our DFS projections that help professional DFS players win thousands and millions of dollars sometimes.
yeah.
We're not seeing a huge difference from a fantasy football perspective, from a median perspective between 7 and 18. CeeDee Lamb, though, he's the one who gets a boost, I think, with Ezekiel Elliott out. Yes, Pollard's going to get his run, but it just means that passing potential is a little bit higher than we thought after a pretty conservative week 7 from Dallas.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on that Zeke injury because the Cowboys haven't said anything about it. Like, and then I read someone said that that's just not true that he's going to play. So like, I don't really understand what's happening there.
It seems like the coaching staff is being cagey, but the media has this in the bag that they know Elliott isn't going to play based on the behaviors of the team and the behaviors of the player. That's what I read it as. I'm putting Elliott as like a 5% chance to play or less.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm just saying it is a little bit strange when things like that happen, and then like the team just doesn't say anything. Yeah,
100% strange. I think it's just gamesmanship, though. It's like, the Cowboys version of what Bill Belichick likes to do in New England. Talk to me about number 17 here, Michael Pittman. Indianapolis has a decent matchup against a Washington team that is a league average defense at best. But Michael Pittman with Sam Ellinger at quarterback, can we really put him in mid-tier wide receiver 2 range? Can we really put him in the same projection range as players like CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Amon-Ra, St. Brown? Again, that's assuming he's healthy.
Yeah, I don't think I would have him necessarily in the same tier. I don't disagree with the ranking, like, as a top 20 receiver, but I think there should be a tier gap after, I would say, T. Higgins. I think that Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be just fine with Sam Ellinger under center. Sam Ellinger is more likely to run the ball as opposed to Matt Ryan. Obviously, anyone with a
Absolutely.
fucking brain could have figured that out, right? Matt Ryan is a statue. And then Sam Ellinger, I think, rushed 16 touchdowns his final year at Texas. So he's clearly a guy that's going to be able to run the ball. I do think that Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be just fine, but I will tell you that I'm less confident than with Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan looked bad, and still I was confident in Michael Pittman, but I do think it is possible that this guy's so young that he just force feeds the ball to his best player. That's what I would do if I was Sam Ellinger.
And Paris Campbell is the one who saw most of the volume from Matt Ryan the last 2 weeks. Maybe the fact that they weren't force feeding Michael Pittman when he was open on film, maybe that affected the decision making of the coaching staff. That's speculation. That's not something I know for certain, but that's speculation. It's nice to see Chris Olave just sitting there, top 15 wide receiver, especially if you drafted him late. DeAndre Hopkins, he looks like a pretty sure thing after his first week back, resulted in 10 catches, I believe, over 100 yards receiving. And
Yeah.
I have to say it, DJ Moore as the last man standing in Carolina without Christian McCaffrey in the fold. This guy sees so much work, essentially 25 to 28% of all team opportunities going to DJ Moore.
Yeah, I still don't trust him though. I'm gonna be completely honest with you.
Even
I
against the
still
bottom
think,
5 defense in Atlanta.
yeah, Atlanta. I do kind of trust him a little. Like, I don't. The reason why I don't trust him is because I just think that PJ Walker might just be so bad. Like, that touchdown almost felt like a fluke that he scored last week. I don't
We
know.
feel
Maybe I'm
differently
wrong.
about DJ Moore. Obviously, usage is the thing that I look for the most, and the stats and the splits with DJ Moore on the field without Christian McCaffrey just looks so positive for his usage, regardless of quarterback. Obviously, the team does not score a lot of points, but they put up 20 against Tampa. They can do things offensively. We're not talking about Chicago Bears level inefficiency from a wide receiver standpoint. So I do think DJ Moore, all the talent in the world, belongs in this tier. Players we just can just gloss over and say, like, yeah, they're good in a good matchup. AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, even this Baltimore defense in the secondary not looking that good. And even T. Higgins, I realize why we have to put Chase ahead. But if you told me at the end of the week that T. Higgins ended up with more fantasy points than Jamar Chase, absolutely no one in fantasy football is surprised.
Yeah, apparently Tyler Boyd can also do that. I played a lot of T. Higgins at DFS last week, and I was not the most happy camper. But at the end of the day, I do think T. Higgins in redraft, he's a guy you're starting every single week. You don't even have to think twice about it. Now, a question I have for you, because I have both of these guys in my lineup. Would you rather play this week Chris Godwin, or would you rather play T. Higgins?
Chris Godwin or T. Higgins?
Yeah.
T. Higgins, because I've seen the Cincinnati offense alive and well for 2 straight weeks, and I can't say the same for Tom Brady.
Okay.
If you're asking me DFS, trying to play against other people, trying to think of range of outcomes, maybe it's another story. But T. Higgins is my answer.
That's what I'm doing too. I was just wondering because that's also a question I've seen. A lot of people have teams that are similar to mine because they watch my videos. They draft similar teams. So that was a question I got a bunch too.
There you go. I think Godwin is a fine flex start, especially if you're hurting with injuries or bye weeks. But if you're asking me to compare, that's where I'd go. Let's hit up tier 3 as we talk about BetMGM for a minute, guys. Got a couple dozen of you in here. Maybe a few of you haven't taken advantage of this yet. Maybe a couple of you kind of drone out when I start to talk about this. But ultimately, I got to say, if someone were to give you an offer, say, hey, if you give me $10, I will immediately flip it back to 200. Just stay right there. You probably look at them weirdly, but you'd probably take that offer. And ultimately, BetMGM is doing that for new users right now. Some restrictions apply, but if you click the link in the video description below, make a $10 pregame moneyline bet on the NBA. All someone in the NBA has to do that night is hit a 3-pointer. Let me just run it back one more time, Nick. One more time, just for clarification's sake. $10 pregame moneyline NBA bet. That's all you got to do. And then when someone hits a 3-pointer at some point in the evening, which they do because we're playing basketball that night, you get $200 in free bets. It's that simple. That's a great way to start. And the link in the video description below gets you there easily. If you have any other questions, do not be afraid to hit up Nick at Notorious FNTSY, me at Draftaholic, or hit us up on Discord as well. All right. Tier 2 also includes Deebo Samuel going against the Rams. He's going to see a lot of Jalen Ramsey. He's got Christian McCaffrey on his team. If you want to talk about him and then move us into tier 3, I'm happy to have you do it.
All right. So last time these two teams played, that was the Deebo Samuel game. Deebo Samuel has yet to really do much outside of that game. And I don't even think, do you think that's um, too bold to say? Because I don't think it is. Like, he really hasn't done much outside that game. I think he does good again this week. Typically, the 49ers use Deebo Samuel differently in these games where they need to win, in a game where they feel like going in, they're not just going to cakewalk this team. I think up against the LA Rams, we see a little bit more Deebo Samuel usage. I think he has a good game. But again, how many times can he score 13 half PPR points until we realize that, hey, maybe he shouldn't be a tier 2 guy, you know?
Yep, that's the way I feel. We always knew this was the case when he was 30th, 35th, I believe, in expected fantasy points among all flex players. So he was actually getting overdrafted based on his opportunity value. Still, wide receiver 19 is respectable. On a week like this, you're probably not benching him anyway. But now the players you probably have questions about, we see some of the usual suspects, some of the heavy hitters in chat. And I love when chat just takes a life of its own. And people are literally like, chat, what do you think? Like, we're just here to hang out with, like, listen to us. But they want to know the answers here. but I think this one is really a complicated tier 3. Of all the tier 3s this year, this one is tough because not only do you have just such immense upside for a lot of these players, but the floor is literally 0 points for players like Cortland Sutton if Russell Wilson isn't starting. Even Jacoby Myers, I'm worried about with that zappy Mac Jones situation. Garrett Wilson isn't used nearly as much with Zach Wilson as he was with Joe Flacco. Even Brandon Cooks, is he even going to be a Houston Texan by Sunday? We don't know these things. Don't even talk to me about how little Atlanta passes and how much Drake London should be used compared to how much he actually is.
Yeah, Drake London at this point is not even anywhere near my top 20. He's nowhere near there. He's a guy that people have asked me if they would cut him, and I said, don't cut him. But like, if you're in like a 10-team league, I can almost understand why you might want to at this point. Like, what is he going to do when he's in this scenario? Unless they switch quarterbacks, which is possible. It seems like Arthur Smith doesn't trust Mariota at all. So then why is Mariota the starter? That's what has really confused me because I think Mariota's good. So like, why don't they trust him? I don't know.
I think Arthur Smith is a little bit stuck in his Derrick Henry frame of mind. He thinks that they're a rushing juggernaut. And what's funny is they're actually rushing pretty well, but they're doing it at inopportune times. When you're down 3 scores in the second half of an NFL game and you start rushing, the defense goes, okay, thanks. Thanks. First of all, your fantasy team start to cry if you have one of the wide receivers or Kyle Pitts, but you also have less plays in the game overall. So it's a kind of a lose situation. It could go right for Drake London. It went right in the first few weeks for him, but ultimately there are players here, especially this middle column, I would much rather play. I still have high hopes for Cortland Sutton. It would be better if Russell Wilson plays. Gabe Davis, we know he has 3 target, 100-yard upside. Adam Thielen and Devonta Smith remain some of my favorite wide receiver 3 flex plays in fantasy football.
Yeah, I assume chat saw the thing about how Russell Wilson was stretching for 4 hours on their flight to England. Like,
Confirmed
what
by
is wrong with
KJ
you guys?
Hamler, right? I saw that.
The Hamler one, that's what made me really laugh. Whereas, like, that's true. He actually did that. Like, what is wrong with this guy, man? And then he goes on an interview afterwards, like when they land, and he's like, yeah, I worked out for 4 hours. I watched film for the other 3 hours, and I slept for 1 hour. It's like, dude, who are you trying to impress? Like, who? What's
I'm
wrong
not
with
going to
you?
remember who tweeted it, but I saw someone was like, hey, he joined the Mile High Knees Club.
The fact he did. I saw something, someone made like a joke that like Russell Wilson, it was a fake interview where Russell Wilson wears number 2 on his chest, but he's trying not to go number 2 anymore because it wastes too much time where he could be watching film.
I don't know like how many people were in your high school, Nick, but you know how your high school just naturally, whether it's a star athlete or a star, student pupil, get test scores and they're getting accredited for something, the high school starts to prop them up. They start to get awards and stuff, and they, you just start to hear their name, and the high school starts to kind of tout them out as like, hey, look at the 15, 16-year-olds we can toss out there. I'm sure you can think of some people that that fit that mold. What if one of those or 3 of those people are just like, oh my gosh, I cannot stand this guy. That's what I feel like is the situation with Russell Wilson. Like, even if he is good enough, like, do we have to deal with all this nonsense? Still, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton in the wide receiver 2-3 conversation. Is there anybody who you wouldn't have here besides Drake London? I mean, Robert Woods, I think it's bullish to have him 22, but I get it. I got some leagues I got to play him for sure this week.
Yeah, it's Robert Woods, and then it's also for me, it has to be Garrett Wilson. There's no way you can be playing Garrett Wilson. Just no way. I have to be in like a 62 team league to play him.
Okay, so even if Corey Davis is out,
Doesn't
if
matter.
they move towards a more pass heavy game script because they don't have rushing efficiency with Breece Hall available to them, nope, doesn't matter to you.
Well, the thing is, so they're going to throw the ball. We've seen Zach Wilson. He's not good. So go ahead, throw the ball. Garrett Wilson's not going to, like, Elijah Moore's coming back. So what's going to happen? Like, I don't know. I don't, like, Zach Wilson, go ahead and prove me wrong. I don't think he's good. I don't think he has the capability to create Garrett Wilson as a top 32 receiver. I really don't.
So we've seen close to or actual goose eggs from Gabe Davis this year, from Devonta Smith. Like the 0 is possible in this tier already
Yeah.
for other players. So what's different about Garrett Wilson's floor than those players? It's just the team he's on now.
Yeah, it's just the quarterback. Like, I just don't think the quarterback's very, and I think they're gonna Saleh's still gonna try to run the ball. It doesn't matter if fucking James Robinson showed up there 4 minutes ago. They're just gonna run the ball. And like maybe Zach Wilson is good. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm an idiot. And maybe this team really is good. Maybe they deserve their 5-2 or whatever they are. They're frauds. They're not good. I don't think that they're gonna win this game. I don't think they're gonna. It's against the Patriots too. Like, do you really think Garrett Wilson's coming out party is going to be against them? I don't.
Watch the Jets fans in the chat go absolutely wild.
There are no Jets
Called
fans.
them frauds. Unbelievable. Here's what's not I almost said here's what's not unbelievable, but it is. It's unbelievable that Mike Jimenez gave us a super chat. Thanks so much
Thank
to
you.
all of you for hanging out, and thank you very much, Mike. We really appreciate it this morning. Pick 2, half PPR. He's got Rashad Bateman, who's still not 100%. Curtis Samuel, Wan'Dale Robinson, the only semblance of talent on the New York Giants receiving core, and Zay Jones. Who are you picking in this? It's a duo you need out of this 4.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel, and then I think I would go. Depends. Like, if you think you're going to lose, then go with Bateman because Bateman has just immense upside. But if you think you can kind of hang in there, I think I'd just go with the safety of Zay Jones.
I don't know, man. This Denver defense is the only thing that works.
Maybe
Zay
then the
Jones is
safety of
good from an
Wandale.
opportunity value.
Maybe Wandale then, because like Rashad Bateman's either going to score 4 or like 25 points, right?
Uh-huh.
So,
Oof.
I,
I honestly think Bateman, if he starts, I'm going there.
okay,
And to be
that's fair.
completely honest, I'm going Wandale next. I don't feel great about it. Curtis Samuel third, Zay Jones fourth.
Okay, I can get behind that.
I just bored you with my analysis. Thank you.
No, you didn't bore me. I can get behind that. I agree with that. That's fine.
I'm ribbing you. I'm ribbing you. Look, okay. So is there anybody on this tier group who, well, I should say that you would have them either a tier higher or your gut says their ceiling is higher this week than it typically is?
Well, Gabe Davis should be a tier higher. Gabe Davis is plug and play every single week. Don't even think twice about it. He is going to potentially completely dominate for your team, win you your week. The Packers defense didn't look good against the Commanders. Terry McLaurin had a field day all over him. Gabe Davis could easily. Now, Gabe Davis also, he's a little risky because he's not going to see 10 targets a game. More than likely. Maybe he does, right? But he's going to see a couple targets every game. He's going to put up the Randy Moss 3 for 3 for 120 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's the good game. So you got to understand that, sure, there is some downside, but just with how good he is, I find it hard to have him ranked this low.
I
Personally.
see that. I see that. I'm looking at Benny Blanco's chat right now. Made me laugh as you were finishing up here. It says Denver defense is going to be a fire sale. For a minute, I thought it was going to be fire. But wouldn't it be funny if the Denver defense balls out, but somehow Jacksonville wins like 13-10 or something because the offense can't do anything?
Happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely could be a London game script. The Lunder could hit again. But then that would be great. Then the ultimate trade values, people are going to start calling off the hook for Denver defensive players because they're going to have a fire sale, Benny. That's a good call. I would love to see it, honestly.
They said they would trade Chubb if they lost.
They said that outright?
Yeah. Did you not see that yesterday or the day before?
They're obviously taking offers for Chubb right now then. They might trade Chubb if they win, if that's the case.
I mean, Chubb's already in London, so they can't really trade him right now. That would suck to get traded and you have to just fly home. Don't even get to play.
Extra London trip out of it. Maybe that's not the worst thing, but I hear you. You don't even get to play. That does sound sucky. All right. I think that's enough for wide receiver 3 tier. This is where it gets really ugly. Obviously, it's better than the running back position. Yeah, Terry McLaurin. There he is. I was wondering if we had him in the top 36. And Alan Lazard, hey, there's only like 2 men standing in that Green Bay Packers disgusting receiving core. It's Lazard and Dobbs. And so I guess Watkins is around too.
Sammy. But yeah, I think Lazard should still be ranked a little bit higher because of how he performed aside from last week. He's a pretty reliable top 24 guy. I get why he's 32, but I think he's a little more reliable.
He got injured. He got injured. So he didn't practice on Wednesday. So we have to mention that.
Yeah, sure. But again, the problem with practice is none of it fucking matters until like Friday, right? Like the practice reports don't matter until later in the week.
Well, here's what matters. Aaron Rodgers said the receiving core, quote, isn't where it needs to be. Sounds like the second graders are getting scolded by teacher. Get in line and get in order in Green Bay or figure it out, Aaron Rodgers. We can move on to tier 4. And we got another super chat by Smooth Criminal Entertainment. What's up, man? Happy to see you here this morning. Gus or, oh gosh, don't hit me with Daryl Henderson questions. Full PPR. Thanks, guys. Nick, we'll go to your answer first.
All right, so it's just Gus or Darrell Henderson. I have to go with Gus. I don't even like Gus like a crazy amount this week. I really talked myself into him last week. I don't love him this week, but I just don't know how anyone could roll out Henderson with any ounce of confidence. Like, sure, maybe the offensive line is better. Maybe they come out of this bye on fucking fire, NBA Jam style, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to come out and, like, look, maybe they can pass the ball. I don't think they're going to run effectively up against that Niners defense. So I just have to go with Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards might just be awful tonight, right? Maybe Kenyon Drake gets more usage, or maybe the fact that he comes back off of an injury means that he's going to, like, maybe they ramp him up even more this week. Like, maybe he sees more production. Maybe the gap widens between the running backs. So that's just how I think about it.
Look, and San Francisco's defense at the front line is fantastic. Uh, that's not an easy matchup for Henderson. Gus Edwards, you need to be prepared for 6.5 fantasy points. That's essentially what you're signing up for. About 16 rushes, 4 yards per rush, gets you at about 64 yards. He had 1 target last week, didn't catch that target. So in full PPR, he isn't as valuable as some other backs out there. However, if he falls in the end zone and he's ultimately the starting running back on a team that's winning, which is very possible tonight against a struggling Tampa Bay team, he should be a decent play, a decent running back 2-3. There's Wan'Dale Robinson at 34. I'm pretty bullish on him rest of season, Nick. I think Wan'Dale is an interesting, dynamic player that is going to be utilized effectively by this new coaching staff in New York. They don't have a ton of talent, but they are using the talent that they have extremely well right now on the Giants. Amari Cooper is by far the best wide receiver option in Cleveland. That's barely good enough for a top 36 play. Outside of this, you're kind of looking at either high floor or home run. Tyler Boyd, high floor, typically actually hit that home run last week. Hunter Renfrow, high floor. Rondale Moore, high floor. Zay Jones, home run. Alec Pierce, home run. Rashad Bateman, home run. It's kind of the way it works with the wide receiver 3-4 tier in general. But are there any that are sticking out to you at the positive, as a positive or negative here?
Yeah, so the guy to talk about here for me would be Amari Cooper and Ayuk. I think Ayuk is just going to continue to be really safe. Now, he was a guy that I kind of have been fading, but recently he's looked good. So I can't, I can't just hold what I thought in the offseason and just throw it through the whole season, right? We're in week 8. There's a lot of different things happening. I like Ayuk. I feel pretty comfortable playing him up against the Rams defense, as the Rams defense just hasn't been what I thought they were going to be. And then when it comes to Amari Cooper, he did have one down game. It was not last week. It was the week prior where he just did not play very good at all. But like he's been pretty reliable as a top 24 guy. Jacoby Brissett has really stepped up in this offense. I'm interested to see just how high Amari Cooper can go when Deshaun Watson returns. Like, could Cooper be a guy that every week we think is a top 12 receiver, like locked and loaded?
Yeah.
Maybe. And
Yeah.
that's coming up soon. Like, it felt so far away when the season started, and now we're almost there. It's almost Watson time.
Well, what is it? Week 13, he can actually start playing again because of the
Yeah.
buys. But still, you got to get there in the fantasy season, right? For most people, that's the last 2 weeks of the regular season. It's not valueless, but you can't just go trading for Amari Cooper because you know you're going to do well in week 13 or 14. Alec Pierce, again, has the same dilemma as we were talking about with Michael Pittman. The Sam Ehlinger dilemma. What in the world is this offense going to look like? Washington as a defense is as league average as they come in most advanced metrics and yards per rush attempt and yards per pass attempt. But I have no idea what to do with these tertiary options. And I would recommend they all stay on your bench this week. How about Brandon Ayuk going up against the Rams, who have been really bad at the secondary receiver position? They have not covered that position well. Kittle's there. Deebo's there. McCaffrey's there. How are you liking him in this matchup?
Yeah, I do think he's in for a good spot. I would say he's a little bit should be ranked a little bit higher than this. I'm not saying he should be like a top 18 guy, but I think inside of the top 32 makes the most sense. And I just consider him a safe guy every single week. He definitely has upside. We saw the upside game, but I wouldn't consider him to be a guy that has like the highest of ceiling just because of the team that he's on with the quarterback that he has. And like, I do think McCaffrey is going to continue to see, he's definitely going to get way more work than last week. So maybe that fizzles out Ayuk, but, or maybe it helps him. You never know.
It is as Benny says in chat here, Ayuk is a dice roll. Absolutely agree. If Alan Lazard's injury is pretty serious, he didn't sit out on Wednesday. Nick, you astutely put. We don't really know much until those Friday practice reports come rolling in. Romeo Doubs will probably climb his way into the high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2 conversation. Right now, he sits at wide receiver 41, clearly in tier 4. But against a tough Buffalo defense, it kind of cancels out because the added volume and the shootout potential of the game means more to me than the fact that Buffalo's defense overall is really good. Or am I getting that wrong?
No, I think that is true. Like the shootout potential is there. I think that Dobbs would be the guy. The problem is like at this point, after what I saw last week, can I trust him though? That was kind of just something that's went into my head. Like, is he trustworthy? And the problem is most of the receivers that are outside the top 18-ish are not trustworthy. They're kind of dice
Right.
rolls, like we're talking about. So yeah, I do think Dobbs would definitely rise drastically in the rankings. I don't even think he was inside of our rankings, or at least the ones I wrote down off the top of my head. Um,
Wow.
no, never mind. He's wide receiver 41. I completely lied. He's on the screen right now. I'm just an idiot.
We got him. We got him. Here's a really interesting trade question. Do I trade Stephon Diggs for Devontae Adams and Mike Evans?
Yes,
Yes.
100%.
Yes, 100%. You got to do it. That's a ton of value. That's basically a first round and a second round pick from September for a first round, which you would probably do every time. We have hit the bottom of the hour here, 10:30 Eastern AM. And so I think we should do a recap before we hit tier 5. If I may ask you, Lepri, to slide back over to tier 1. I'll do the first part, and then you'll take over maybe a wide receiver tier 3 for me. Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. Heard of them? Pretty good. Apparently, you're trading Stephon Diggs for Devontae Adams all the way down to number 5, and Mike Evans, who we'll see in a minute. The only one who has a tough matchup on this list, it's Cooper Kupp. Still, you're not benching him under any circumstances. This Los Angeles offense does not look good, but Stafford to Kupp remains intact. Jamar Chase against the Cleveland defense that is bottom 12 against the pass in a very good spot as well. If we go to tier 2 here, then we have a really, really large amount of players, starting with CeeDee Lamb at number 7, going against the Chicago defense that is good, not great, pretty much everywhere. The only concern is Chicago does not push the tempo at all, so the shootout potential of that game is quite low. Still like Jalen Waddle a ton, even though Tyreek's seen more opportunity over the last 4 weeks. Miami's going up against a bad Detroit defense. I like everyone in the middle column. I think Devontae Adams is on there twice because I saw him at number 5. That's all right.
My bad.
That's definitely on me. Don't worry about it, Lepri.
No, number 11's Godwin. That was on me. I typed.
Oh, okay. There we go. There we go. That's where
I'm
he
very sorry.
belongs, right? And I think if you wanted to switch Godwin, who's at 11, and Evans, who's at 16, I don't think that's crazy at all. Lockett, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, A.J. Brown. There's almost no situations where I'm telling you to bench those players. Michael Pittman, I feel differently about. I almost have an uneasiness. I recognize the volume has been there, but the projection itself is flimsy. DJ Moore, I'm fine with. As we head to the end of tier 2, I believe we also have Deebo Samuel in this tier as well. Rushing upside, efficiency in the team in general, but mouths to feed argument absolutely in place. Then we hit tier 3, Brandon Cooks, plenty of volume, not a great team, not a great matchup. Tennessee's defense is okay, and the shootout potential is low. Again, it comes down to the middle column randomly 24, 25, 26, 27, where I feel the most confident. Gabe Davis, 100-yard upside every time he steps on the field. Cortland Sutton, fingers crossed we get Russ back, even just mediocre Russ. And Adam Thielen and Devonta Smith are premier wide receiver 2s on some of the best teams in the NFL. Then it gets to hope and a prayer situation. Christian Kirk's got the Broncos. That's a tough one. Terry McLaurin is another one on Indy. Jerry Jeudy, again, going against Jacksonville, who's above average defensively. And then we talked earlier about Garrett Wilson and the uneasiness we feel about any receiver in the New York Jets receiving corps going against the Patriots. You called them frauds. You called them frauds. That would bring us back all the way to tier 4, I believe. Lazard McLaurin fits there as well. Oh, man. I keep looking at the flex position from 34 to 50 at both positions, running back and wide receiver, excuse me. And I just can't parse it out in ways that I typically can. I can't even look at, all right, is this a good offense? Is this a good matchup? I can use my DFS and my fantasy football fundamentals, but the variance, the week-to-week variability has been so high this year, Nick.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think out of this ranking tier here from 34 to 45, and sorry, I kind of got lost in my brain because there's someone mowing the lawn yet again outside, just hating on me, trying to distract me, and the sex bots are now here, which is even better.
The bots are back. We've done it.
From 34 to 45, I think there is a couple of guys that stand out even more than what I was saying a little bit before. Like, I think Rondell Moore, after one bad game, I don't think we should necessarily count him out. Like, we're counting him out, and he didn't write back, Geno Smith style. I think Rondell Moore could get back on the saddle and have a better game. Now, the issue with Rondell Moore is that you already know that sneaky bastard Greg Dortch will probably score a touchdown or steal away some targets. And you know Zach Ertz is super good as well. This is a matchup that I think could be incredibly high scoring, maybe even the most high scoring game of the week up against the Vikings. The Vikings offense can really push the agenda to have Arizona fight back. Now, Call of Duty does drop tonight. I have pre-ordered it, so I'm excited to play. And I know Kyler Murray's also excited to play, so that could be a tough scene for Rondell Moore. Obviously, it's a joke, though.
Oh, no, we're losing both Kyler Murray and you. You've been so productive this season so far.
I know. At 39, we have Hunter Renfrow. Renfrow is also a guy I kind of want to talk about as well with the Raiders. Like, he has not really seen that much usage. Mac Hollins has gotten higher, but Hunter Renfrow is still fine. And then the last guy to talk about here is, what are you going to do with Alec Pierce this week?
Bench him if at all possible. At all possible. The Washington defense is bad or league average in most categories. But what in the world is going to happen to the Colts? We don't know if this is a good decision. We don't know if this is even a net positive or just a net neutral decision. This could go way worse. And Paris Campbell's the one who got most of the volume. Absolutely not. I would have him outside my top 60.
Okay, that makes sense. And yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And I'm trying to make a joke and I fucking forgot exactly what I was going to say. You said you don't know what's going to happen to the Colts. I know what's going to happen to the Colts. He's going to make a lot of money playing NBA.
Oh my gosh, guys.
That's what I was going to say.
That is a perfect segue because we got to get out of here at 40 past the hour on Thursdays, because over on the Stokastic DFS channel, you see it in the video description below, but we have a special show every single Thursday, the DFS matchup show. If you're new to DFS, or if you're just dipping your feet in the water, you play a couple lineups a week and you need one podcast, one show that you could watch, listen to, and you could feel up to date as much as you could heading into the weekend about players and how they fare based on how we expect them and their salary-based expectations. When you add that into the fold, I would suggest the DFS matchup show every single week. Myself and Dave Lofgren over on the Stokastic DFS channel. It's a whole lot of fun, first of all. It's a weird and wild chat, but it also introduces you to the wild world of DFS. The Stokastic DFS channel is awesome. We love our friends over there. I'm going to throw you a link in the chat. And green check mark. It's the best show if you have 3.5 hours to spare. We have gotten the time down a little bit, but only a little bit. Again, the goal there, it's one show to get you ready for the entire main slate. I think you have to have a little extended time, but we have a whole lot of fun over there. Would appreciate you guys joining us right after this stream at 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll let you close things out with wide receiver tier 4. And if you want to throw tier 5 on the screen, you can, but after wide receiver 50, it's a hope and a prayer, and we can't really predict much of anything.
Yeah, so out of this tier, I think George Pickens should be ranked way higher. I'm making my wide receiver rankings video, and after I heard what I heard about Lazard, I got to move Lazard down, but Pickens was inside the top 32. I think he's inside my top 28. I feel very comfortable with Pickens, with Kenny Pickett under center, and I think he should be ranked higher. And then since I made the graphics for tier 5, we might as well throw it on the
Ooh, look at
screen.
those graphics. Damn.
They're nice. Wide receivers 49 through 56. We got Darnell, Here Comes the Mooney, Chase Claypool, Mac Hollins, Marquise Goodwin, Devontae Paca, Nick Westbrook, Ikain, Allen Robinson II, and Nico Collins. Interesting tidbit. One of my subscribers went to high school with Nick Westbrook, Ikain, and they are friends, which is very interesting. That has nothing to do with anything, but I think it's interesting. The guy to talk about here would be Goodwin. Now, I don't know how much I trust Goodwin, because it seems like that may have been a fluke last week. But what I do know is without DK Metcalf, someone's got to catch the ball. And I'm not too sure it's D. Eskridge. So, I mean, I think I would have to just move Goodwin up the rankings because of that. I'm not saying he's a lock to be a top 32 guy, but we saw the upside. The upside's certainly there he's pretty old, but he's still very fast.
It's a little disheartening when the waiver wire pick du jour of the week is wide receiver 52 in our projections, our projection-based rankings. At the same time, there's some risk of ruin here that puts his floor with other players who what the floor is, guys. You know that it might be 0.2 points. It might be 0 points.
Yeah.
We've seen that from players in this grouping. You know what you're getting into when you play players on your lineup from this group, but sometimes we're forced to. We've seen 2 5-target games from Goodwin already. And if teams are trying to bottle lock it, just got there, then Marquise
Yep.
Goodwin most likely in line for solid wide receiver 2 production. Right?
All
That's
right.
pretty much it.
Yeah, that is it. The only other guy to mention is Nico Collins, who has looked better, but I just, like in redraft league, you can't really do much with. Has looked good, but he's on the Texans.
He's a sneaky ad, guys, because Nico Collins moves into a wide receiver 1 role if the rumors are true that Brandon Cooks is on his way out to a contender. Any last words for the people as we finish tier 5? We finished the wide receivers. Why don't you tell everyone what you're up to rest of the week and where they can find you?
Yeah, real quick on that Brandon Cooks thing. Brandon Cooks himself on Twitter liked the tweet that was like best landing spots for Brandon Cooks if he gets traded, which I thought was very funny. So what I will say is you should be following me on Twitter at Notorious FNTSY. You should subscribe to this channel, Stokastic Fantasy Football. We are live every Monday through Friday. We'll be back tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Yep. All right, I will be back tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time prior to kickoff on Thursday Night Football. I'll be live on here and on Notorious Fantasy. If you want other videos where it's just me, just subscribe to Notorious Fantasy by Stokastic on YouTube. I'm on there 2 to 3 times basically every single day, and I'll be live again tonight, and I'll be live on Sunday as well on here and on there. And then real quick, Blue Yays asked, just joined, not sure if you covered it with the Zeke news. What's a fair tier of wide receiver to trade Pollard for? I think Zeke is going to come back. You think you can trade Waddle for Pollard?
If you could get someone in desperation mode right now, Tony Pollard's a really good player. You could hype up his efficiency, and I think you could get a player like Waddle who looked incredible in the first half and then disappeared. And you can say, he's a wide receiver 2 on his own team. I think you could do it. I think you could.
Okay, so thank you guys all for watching. I know Matt is on a time crunch. He's got to go to his 3.5 hour long show, of course. So thank you guys for watching. Matt, you can exit us out of here.
We appreciate you guys so much for hanging out. Make sure to click the link in the video description below to get started at BetMGM. Truly an awesome offer. And join the community, the Stokastic Notorious community, the best place to hang out if you're a fantasy football player, DFS player, or sports bettor. For Nick Lepri, follow him at Notorious FNTSY. You can follow me on Twitter at Draftaholic as well. We will be back tonight with that live stream, the Notorious Fantasy Hour. Until then, I'm Matt Savoca. We'll see you guys later.